ChatBack on RCV News.
The time is 9:26 and welcome to Friday's edition of ChatBack right here on your number one radio station, Radio Christian Voice. My name is Angel Kasavo. Great to know that you are on board this morning, and just a reminder that this conversation is live on Facebook. On Facebook, you go to your Facebook and search for RCV News. Remember, RCV News is a platform where we do post everything current affairs, so come through and let's get interactive. Then also the number is 0956 200 490. 0956 200 490 is the number that you are getting in touch with the studio for your contributions and questions. All right, so today, Friday, the 17th of May, we do have a great topic with us this morning. The topic of discussion is the Public Procurement Amendment Act number 17 of 2023 and the EGP system implementation. And my guest this morning, coming through from the Zambia Public Procurement Authority, I'm privileged to be joined by the Acting Director, Research and Capacity, Acting Director, Research and Capacity Development, Mr. Terry Gunduza. Good morning and welcome to ChatBack.
Good morning, listeners. Good morning, Angel.
Did I do justice on the name?
You did.
I've been rehearsing.
You did very well. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for coming through. And then also, we're also joined by Principal Officer, EGP, Mr. Malcolm Nkowani from ZPPA. Good morning and welcome to ChatBack.
Good morning, Angel, and good morning to our listeners out there.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much for joining us on ChatBack this morning. And we do have a great topic, just to discuss. And hopefully we're going to have a wonderful time together. All right, let's get into it. Maybe for starters, how is ZPPA doing this morning? I usually love to ask this question. How is ZPPA doing this morning?
Angel, ZPPA is doing fine, but we're quite busy. We have a lot to do as a regulator in public procurement, but we're doing fine.
Yeah. All right. Let's now get to the first question. Maybe to begin with, we've heard of the Zambia Public Procurement Authority. A lot of people have seen it, but they don't really understand what is ZPPA all about. I think let's start it from there. What is ZPPA all about, and what is its mandate?
Thank you, Angel. ZPPA stands for Zambia Public Procurement Authority. So, Angel, we are a regulator of public procurement in Zambia. And our work or mandate is as established in the Public Procurement Act number 8 of 2020, also as amended by the Public Procurement Act number 17 of 2023. So we derive our mandate and work from what is prescribed in the law. Yes.
And then maybe just to ask a question there, you've talked about how public procurement in Zambia. So this already tells us that your focus or your goal really is just in the public sector. Is it also in the private sector?
Thank you for that very important question. Just like you have actually referred to as public procurement, we regulate only the public sector procurement and not the private sector. However, we do engage, we have interactions with the private sector in terms of suppliers and contractors. Yes, but really our mandate is to regulate public procurement in Zambia.
Yeah, and then also, because I've also had conversations with, individuals when it comes to ZPPA, the question is, why don't they also regulate procurement in the private sector? Could there be any reason, or maybe the private sector have their own sort of, arrangement?
Just to clarify, actually, why we regulate only the public sector is that just as it says public procurement, we only look at institutions that are using what we call public funds.
Okay,
public funds.
I think that's important.
Public resources, or taxpayers' money. So institutions that are funded by government or that use public money or resources are referred to as public institutions or public sector institutions. So those are the ones that we basically look at to manage or to look at how they are doing their procurement using public funds or public resources. But the private sector they don't use public funds,
Yeah.
public resources. They use their own resources, their own money.
Mm.
So we do not regulate such institutions when it comes to their procurement.
Okay. All right. Now, you actually earlier mentioned that the Public Procurement Act number 8 of 2020 was amended. What really caused the amendment, the amendments, and when was it amended?
All right. Maybe let's first answer the question, when was it amended? So we have the Public Procurement Amendment Act number 17 of 2023. So essentially it was amended in December of last year, 2023. And His Excellency the President actually assented to this amendment bill. So it was actually amended last year, December of 2023.
Last year, December. Yeah.
Yes. Why was it amended? Essentially, it was trying to look at, I think there were a lot of concerns about the procurement process. And I think one of them really is on the lengthy processes. Public procurement is taking too long. There are delays in, how procurements are being done and how, up to award of contract. So there was a concern on the lengthy processes of procurement. So why it was done is basically, I'll give three reasons or three objectives. One, it was to revise the time, or what we call the timelines, or the period for conducting public procurement. The lengthy process. It was basically to look at how do we shorten these lengthy processes in the procurement system or procedures. Two, it was also to look at certain areas of public procurement. A good example is what we call subcontracting, where here's a main contractor, and in the main contractor, you would want to subcontract part of the contract to another contract or contractor. So now there was a need to also amend the issue of subcontracting to only apply to procurement of works, okay, and not goods and services. And for me, it actually makes sense because, for example, here's a procurement of goods. So there's a procurement of a tipper truck, or you're procuring, vehicles. How do you subcontract? What is 20% of that vehicle?
Yeah, of that vehicle.
Yeah, so it was a bit difficult to subcontract in terms of when you're doing procurement of goods. So the law had to be amended to take care of that, so that subcontracting is only applied to procurement of works.
Yeah.
And essentially also is to make the procurement process more efficient and more effective. So basically those are the reasons that the law had to be amended.
Yeah. All right, awesome. And looking at this, the Public Procurement Act, what has been amended in the Public Procurement Act? I know you've talked about why it was amended, but what, to be specific, has been amended in this Public Procurement Act?
There are such sections which have been amended. I'll try to run you through on what really has been amended. I think I'll start with the most very pertinent. I know all of them are, but I think for me, what area that has been amended is the issue of clearance of contracts, contract variations, amendment, which needed the Treasury to be involved in that process. So the Act has amended that requirement for Treasury to be involved, especially when it comes to clearance of contracts, contract variations, and amendment of contracts. So that aspect has been dealt with in the amendment. Secondly, the issue of legal advice of Attorney General. Maybe just give you a background, Angel, and also for the sake of our listeners. In public procurement, for every contract, there was a requirement by law that every contract needed to go to Attorney General to clear that contract, because actually it is a requirement in the Constitution. Yeah. Now, because of that requirement, all procuring entities had to send their contracts to Attorney General before those contracts would be signed with a supplier or a contractor. It was adding to the lengthy process. Okay, because sometimes at the Attorney General to take sometimes weeks, actually sometimes even months for them to clear those contracts. So what the law has been amended is to remove that requirement for Attorney General. So what's not everything, but what really has been amended is that what will go to Attorney General is only procurements that are above what we call simplified bidding. Okay,
Simplified bidding meaning
or procurements which are the value of 1 million and above.
the big ones.
The big ones.
Okay.
So those are the only ones now which will go to Attorney General. And for simplified selection or procurement for consulting services, only those which are above the threshold of 600.
Yeah, and maybe just for the sake of curiosity, why these contracts? Why do they have to go through the Attorney General? Is it because of the nature, the size, and then there has to be legal issues that have to be maybe sorted out before they're signed?
Very, very good question. Attorney General is the legal advisor of government.
Okay.
And every contract that is entered into where government is involved or government is a partner in this contract, you need a lawyer. So the Attorney General is actually the lawyer for government. So there's that requirement because of the legal issues or implications. There are cases where probably a supplier contractor would sue government. So government needs that legal expertise. So Attorney General is the legal advisor, really.
Yeah. So is it safe to say that all these big contracts that we see where there's procurement involved, all these ones must have gone through the Attorney General's office?
With this amendment now, what will go to Attorney General is only procurements. For example, if it's a procurement of works, goods and non-consulting services, it will be those which are more than 1 million kwacha.
1 million kwacha,
Yes.
more than
1 million kwacha.
these ones would have gone through the
These
office
ones now are the ones which will be going to Attorney General. So it means that only for procurements which are within the 1 million kwacha threshold and below, they will not go to Attorney General.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe also for the sake of curiosity, because sorry, I'm
It's
putting
fine.
in a lot of questions, but then because I've also been listening to concerns from members, politically they would say our background, they're saying ABCD. So this means even procurement that is done through CDF, if it's above 1 million kwacha, it has to go through the Attorney General.
Yes, it applies also to CDF because CDF really, that's also government money, government resources. And CDF, you're talking about constituency development funds. That's government money. So all contracts in public procurement, that's the process they'll go through. But even so, it also applies to CDF. So procurements that are only above the threshold of 1 million, are the ones that will go to CDF. So it also applies, to Attorney General. So it also applies to CDF.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Maybe we could continue with the I don't know if you exhausted on what has been amended in the Public Procurement Act.
Yes, I think I was talking about the clearance of contracts to do with, I think I touched on that one, in detail. Also, secondly, what has been amended is the requirement for, citizens and local bidders. So what has been amended is that now, in this Amendment Act, citizens as well as what we call local bidders will participate at the same time in especially what we call open national bidding or open national selection. Maybe just to explain to the viewer, previously what used to happen, especially for open national bidding or open national selection, is that you would first invite a tender and you'd only invite citizens. And who are citizens? Basically a Zambian, so Zambian suppliers, Zambian contractors. So they would be invited first. If that tender or you fail to secure an award to a Zambian, then you do a second procurement process to now invite a local bidder. A local bidder is a foreigner but registered in Zambia. So there was a requirement by law to undertake procurement in that way for open national bidding or open national selection. So what has been amended is that it has removed that requirement to do a second procurement process, invite them at the same time.
Yes.
However, guidance is that we should give priority, especially during the evaluation, to the citizens.
Citizens.
So basically, that is what has been amended. So this has been done to reduce the requirement of undertaking 2 procurement processes, which was adding to the lengthy process of so that has been amended. And I think I also did mention, maybe just to also emphasize on it, subcontracting now has been restricted only to procurement of works. I think I alluded to that much earlier. So that also has been amended. Also, which is a plus for me, the Amendment Act has actually taken care of what we call procurement pricing. Now, in the previous provision in the Act, there was a provision, especially under Section 12, subsection 4 of the Act, which required the authority to approve what we call price reasonable analysis. So it meant that when a P conducts what we call price reasonable analysis, they had to send that to ZPPA to be approved before they continued or proceeded with that procurement.
Yeah.
And to give you a background, when ZPPA was doing that, it meant all procuring entities in Zambia. We have over 500 angel procuring entities scattered all over. And each one was sending their price reasonable analysis to ZPPA. Imagine also the councils with their CDF, they were sending everything. And you're talking about 116 councils. And you're talking about, the other institutions in the public sector. All of them were it was a mess for us because it would delay this procurement. Sometimes it would take weeks, sometimes even months to approve these price reasonable analysis. And I remember, Angel, there was one particular procurement for me. I think it was a bit of an issue where this was a price reasonable analysis for an institution. They were procuring 1 liter milk, 1 kg salt. It had to come to ZPPA for approval of that price reasonable analysis. So I think there was a problem of being efficient in the process. So what the law has done is has amended that requirement. So it has removed the requirement for ZPPA to approve price reasonable analysis.
Okay, so ZPPA is no longer approving.
So we are no longer approving. And even before the Amendment Act, actually what also happened, maybe for the sake of the listeners, before the amendment, actually, we tried to also take care of that issue.
Yeah.
When the regulations of 2022 were issued, we actually devolved that function, especially for approval price reasonable analysis, back to the Ps. But with the amendment, it amended now what was in the Section 12 of the Public Procurement Act.
Yeah.
So ZPP is now no longer in the picture to approve prices. So all these are done within the institutions, the P themselves. Also to part of adding to efficiency.
Yeah.
So that we do not delay this.
And maybe for a layman, the question would be, if ZPPA is no longer approving, so then what's happening in these institutions? Do you give them some sort of threshold, or it's totally up to them to decide? If you want to buy 1 liter milk for 30 kwacha, that's your that's your problem.
Yes, Angel. What has happened? I mean, maybe I should have probably brought this also earlier on. All procurements have been decentralized to the institution. So essentially, public sector institutions, maybe just to give a practical example, here's Ministry of Education. Whatever procurements they're done, they do it everything by themselves. So we have given them what we call unlimited threshold. So all procurements are being conducted by the institutions themselves. So Ministry of Education is procuring maybe school materials, or they are procuring, projects. For example, there's construction of schools in the districts. They'll conduct all those procurements by themselves. They are procuring maybe vehicles for the ministry. they will do all procurements by themselves as institutions because they have what we call procurement committees.
Committees, yes.
And also controlling officers to approve procurements within the threshold of the controlling officer. So all procurements have been done by these institutions themselves. Also, if you look at the local authorities, the councils, okay, we have 116 of them. So each council is doing procurements by themselves, okay, because of the decentralization policy. And this is also to add to the efficiency, so that there's no delaying of procurements coming to ZPPA.
Yeah.
However, we monitor these institutions. It's also part of our mandate. We do what we call compliance assessment or monitoring, so that as they are doing these procurements by themselves, Angel, they are still within the provisions of the law.
And
Okay.
how efficient is this compliance? Because I have a story to tell you about. There's a certain constituency on the Copper Belt. It's a very funny story that this particular constituency, through the CDF committees, purchased a grader for, I think, was it 2 million kwacha, if not more, somewhere there around 2 million kwacha. And then it only worked for 6 months. And then after it worked for 6 months, they took it back and said, no, you actually have to fix this grader. You need 1 million to fix it. So maybe it's in those lines that one would ask, how efficient are these compliance checks? Because to the eye, it's very complicated, but it a little bit looks better, the old system, because then ZPP will say, hey, no, you guys, why do you want to buy milk for 70 kwacha, 1 liter milk, or 500 grams for but then also that prolong the process. So maybe efficiency, how efficient are these compliance checks really with these
Well, in terms of compliance, I would say we have a role to play, and yes, we are in a way efficient, okay, because in our compliance monitoring, we undertake various activities to ensure that the procuring entities are in compliance with the provisions of the law and the regulations. The law and the regulations, why do they come into picture? It's because we're using public money, public resources, Angel. This is public money, taxpayers' money. So laws are there to protect or preserve these public resources. So our mandate is we undertake various activities. One of them is we actually do what we call capacity assessment. We go to the PE. Physically, we have staff in the compliance monitoring department that goes to the P, to this council, to this, and do on-spot check of what is happening within the institution. Okay, so there's capacity assessment. We also do procurement audits, essentially auditing the procurement process of this institution. So that is also what we do. We also do site visits. In fact, what we call contract monitoring, that's also part of our mandate. So through these, we are able to see, it's part of checks and balances. Are they doing the correct things?
Correct things, yeah.
Also, apart from that, yes, it's a requirement that as they undertake these procurements, they're supposed to submit minutes of the procurement committee meetings, also quarterly reports of what procurements they undertook, even monthly, especially when they're doing what they call direct bidding or single sourcing. So all these reports are supposed to be submitted. It's also part of our monitoring system, so that we ensure that public money is being utilized properly.
Yes. Now, before we get to the EGP implementation, sticking with you, Mr. Gunduza, I have one question, really, and sorry to take you back. But over the years, we heard reports of how, maybe for instance, construction of a toilet or construction maybe of an ablution block. According to our eye, we said, that ablution block costing 17 million kwacha, when it should have maybe, according to us, maybe it should have costed or even 2 million kwacha. We heard those stories way back, and that was the time when ZPPA was in charge of or overseeing to say, okay, fine, if this is what you want to procure, we'll have to go through it. But now those stories are slowly dying down. There could be some few gray areas here and there, but they're slowly dying down. What really caused that? Is it that maybe we, the people, the layman, don't really understand how much certain projects maybe might cost, or maybe there was just the gaps here and there, especially when you do your assessment way back. There were some projects really that even when they tell you that this costed so much, then you're like, oh wow, really? But then slowly dying down, but there are few gray areas. But what really caused that?
Or you mean in terms of the costs of certain
Yes,
projects?
the cost of
or
certain
the cost
projects.
well, of course, maybe just to give a bit of background, especially where we are coming from. Previously, issues of pricing or costs was really up to a P.
Yes.
Yeah, and of course suppliers or contractors would price, and we're in a free market economy. So suppliers or contractors, they're able to quote within the market. So a procuring entity, for as long as they had resources or funds, they would proceed to buy or to procure whatever they would procure, whatever price, at least if it was within their budget, I think. Yes, previously. But of course, with the reforms and the amendments that have come, there's what we now call market price index, so that it helps procuring entities make a decision, an informed decision, when they are procuring an item. Is this price value for money?
Value for money, yeah.
Is this price reasonable? Yes, so at least we have now come in, not really to control the prices, but to help Ps make an informed decision.
Informed decision, yeah.
Yes, and that's why we issue now with what we call a market price index. Essentially, it's a guide or a tool for a P to use to decide, should they proceed to procure this item at this price? Is this price reasonable or not? Should they proceed or not? So basically, it's just to help them. Yes. So we have these measures now to just help Ps, so that as they do these procurements, they're doing procurements with at the back of their mind, they are looking at value for money, and is the price reasonable or not?
Okay.
So it's basically a guide.
Okay.
To help the Ps. Maybe.
And also to add on to that, the same reforms that we've done, we've brought in a component of offences that accrue to those people who are not doing the price reasonable analysis, and also those who are not sticking with the market price index. So if someone has been found wanting for not complying with the provision in the law where they buy things at inflated prices, we have offences that accrue to them in their individual capacity. So we've amended the law, and under Section 105, there are offences that accrues to someone for buying things at inflated prices.
Yeah.
And also, most of the things that they are doing, there's a requirement in the law under Section 57 where they have to plan their requirements, and they have to make sure that money is available before they can undertake these procurement processes.
Yeah.
So the law now has got teeth.
Yeah.
So those who are not really complying, they will be visited, and people will be surcharged, others will be demoted, and things like that.
The question is, how sharp are those teeth? Are they really sharp?
Very. I'm sure you've been, if you've been following the news, there is one incident. There was one in Southern Province where a former PS was somehow found wanting for not following the procedures. And we had one incident in Eastern Province where a contract was not properly terminated, and those people who were involved were actually facing the law.
Yeah.
So our teeth are actually there.
Actually there. All right. I think this, our listener actually read my mind. But before I get to the text message, just a reminder that this conversation is actually live on Facebook. You can come through on Facebook. Let us know where you are watching from, and also your contribution and question with regards to our topic of discussion this morning. We are looking at the Public Procurement Amendment Act number 17 of 2023 and the EGP system implementation. We've been hearing a lot about the EGP system implementation from ZPPA. In case you have any burning questions, in case you have, those things that you really want to find out from ZPPA, today is your day. You can send us a text message on the number 0956 200 490, or you can also come through on Facebook. Let us know where you are watching from and also your contribution. Let me get this caller just to let's hear in case someone has got a question before we move on to the next item. Your name and where you're calling us from?
Douglas from Sorrel.
Yes, Mr. Douglas.
Yes, I just wanted to find out the market price index. Does it apply to projects like roads or buildings? Because I've been here following projects for CDL. You'll find that maybe classroom block 1x3, somewhere it is costing maybe 600, somewhere it is costing maybe 1.5 million. So I just wanted the clarification. Thank you.
All right, Douglas, thank you so much. Your question will be addressed in the second hour of the program, so make sure you do stay tuned. I think we do have an area where we'll talk about the price marketing index, so that we just, for people to really understand. But I have one question here before we hit the top of the hour. It says, good morning. I'm listening to the program and I'm learning a lot. How about those reports of a pen in government costing 15 kwacha? Where is ZPPA in all this? Thank you so much. No name for this one. Asking about reports of how a pen in government costs 15 kwacha. I don't know if that's if that's true, but we've heard those rumors. But maybe you could respond to that, and then we break off, and then we come to the EGP system in the second hour.
Thank you, Angel. Maybe let me address the question of maybe the pen costing 15 kwacha. That's why, Angel, we have the market price index. The market price index looks at items that are commonly procured, especially in the public sector. And I believe pens are one of them. So I may not maybe be able to cite offhand, but obviously we have these commonly items on the market price index, and they look at what is the price of an average pen on the market. Okay, and maybe to I don't know if you would allow me to give a bit of a background on the MPI, on how we do.
Are you able to do that in 60 seconds?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just allow me, Angel. So what happens is that our officers will go on the ground. They'll pick an item. 6 quotations, Angel. How much is this pen costing? From 6 different suppliers or outlets. We get those quotations, the 6 of them, and we do what we call a geometric mean. Okay, so that we get what is the value or the average price of this pen. So the market price index is there to give information to procuring entities of what is the average price of this pen on the market. And then it now gives a tolerance of plus or minus 15% is acceptable to be able to procure that pen. Yeah. So basically, that is why we have this. I
think we'll get to that in the second hour of the program. Yeah. So in case you're just tuning in, you are listening to Friday's edition of ChatBack. And this morning we are discussing the Public Procurement Amendment Act number 17 of 2023 and the EGP system implementation. This morning we do have a great conversation with officials from ZPPA. So you can keep your questions and contributions coming on the number 0956 200 490. Up next is the news, and then we'll continue our conversation just after the news. Good morning.
ChatBack on RCV News.
The time in Central Africa is 10:07, and you are still listening to Friday's edition of ChatBack right here on Radio Christian Voice. My name is Angel Kasabo, and in case you are just tuning in, we are now into the second hour of the program. And this morning we do have an interesting topic. We are looking at the Public Procurement Amendment Act number 17 of 2023 and the EGP system implementation. And this morning I do have officers from the Zambia Public Procurement Authority. I'm being joined by the Acting Director, Research and Capacity Development, Mr. Terry Gunduza. And then also we do have the Principal Officer, EGP, Mr. Nkowani from ZPPA. So for your contributions and questions, the number is 0956-200-490. And then also you can come through for your contribution on Facebook. On Facebook, it is RCV News. Remember, RCV News is a platform where we do post everything current affairs. All right, let's get back to the conversation. In the first hour of the program, we really discussed about the amendment and what is involved, what was amended, and issues pertaining to that particular act. Now, this hour, let's focus more on the EGP implementation, and I would like to bring in Mr. Nkowani. I know really this is sort of your area of expertise. Now, let's discuss the electronic government procurement EGP system implementation. Firstly, explain to the listeners and of course our viewers on Facebook what the EGP system is and why ZPPA introduces system in public procurement.
Okay. Thank you very much, Angel. So basically, the electronic government procurement system is embracing information communication technology in public procurement. So what this means is procurement still remains the way we know it.
Yes.
That is, you have the same direct bids, open bids, simplified bid, everything that we know about procurement remains as it is. But the only difference now is that we've embraced ICT in public procurement. So by definition, the electronic government procurement system is an internet-based platform that allows public institutions to engage suppliers in the acquisition of goods, works, consulting, and non-consulting services that they need in their day-to-day operations. So to give you a little bit of a background as to why we decided to go before 2016, public procurement was being handled solely by manual means. So we
Paperwork.
Paperwork. So with that, we had a lot of challenges that were eminent from that procedures that we were using, the manual ones. So amongst them, we had issues of lack of transparency. Because I'm sure if you're using manual procurement, it's difficult for the members of the public to have access to what those procurements are. So it was a little bit less transparent, and it was paper intensive. So we had a situation where if a supplier is participating in an open national tender, they were required to submit 1 copy of the original bid and then 5 copies of the same. So you discover that for one supplier to submit, they would have a bunch of paperwork which they had to submit to a procuring entity. So imagine a tender was so attractive and it had about 100 suppliers. Think of the paperwork that was there. It was actually a lot of paperwork. So
and just put me to light. Before the act was amended, let's say you said these people needed to engage ZPPA. So let's say, for instance, maybe a council in Zambezi district. That meant they had to come all the way from Zambezi to ZPPA with those documents.
No.
That's previously?
No. So how it used to happen is, like he indicated before we went for the break, procurement has been decentralized in Zambia since 2008.
Oh, okay.
So they were still doing their procurement on their own.
Okay.
Yeah. So now what used to happen is, for suppliers to participate, it required them to submit hard copies. So with that, it was a little bit tedious even for the people who are doing the evaluation, because the amounts of paperwork was too much. So that was one of the disadvantages of the manual system. And then we also had, like I indicated in the morning, the law provides that before you can buy anything in a particular year, you need to have an annual procurement plan. But with the manual procurement system, the safeguards were not there. So we had an ethical conduct by procuring entities where they don't have an annual procurement plan, but they would still buy. And also when suppliers participate in tenders, they debrief, like after you conduct the procurement process, the law dictates that you tell people why they failed. It's a way of building capacity.
Yeah.
So that was not mandatory in the manual system. And then we also had issues where people are not following procedures when they're doing manual systems. So you go to an institution, you ask them about how a procurement was conducted, you discover that certain steps were missed. So that was also a dismerit of for the manual system. And then we also had issues of human interface. So the manual procurement would actually, for you to have any information to do with procurement, you had to go to a procurement officer to find out, to say, do you have any business for me? They give you an inquiry, you go back, you prepare your quotation, you have to see the procurement officer. You give this procurement officer your quotation, then it will take maybe 3 months. You just keep on following up to say, how far with that procurement, how far? So with that, those were some of the breeding grounds for corruption, because if you are not giving me the information that I'm looking for, then I'll probably invite you over after 17 and say, let's meet somewhere. And then I think if I give you something, you might give me the information that I'm looking for. So these human interfaces with the manual procurement, they brought about a lot of issues with procurement. So these are some of the reasons why we thought we can go electronic. And with the electronic system, most of these issues like lack of transparency, the government spending more on overpriced goods and services, issues to do with some suppliers being disadvantaged, all these things are being mitigated because the system allows that people now can do away with these challenges that I've been highlighting. And now that's what gave birth to the electronic government procurement system. So we started rolling it out in 2016. We had a few institutions that we had on a pilot phase. And then from 2016 up to 2018, we started rolling it out now on a phase-based approach. So the law during that time was also being amended. And when it came to 2021, we had a new law. So a new law was enacted in 2021, which made now the use of the system mandatory for all government institutions. So that's where we are now.
Yeah, and then maybe, I think you briefly touched on the benefits of using this EGP system. Maybe if you could just shed more light on the other benefits really that come with using this particular system.
Okay, so I would love to segment my answer to specific users of the system. So the first users that I will address are the suppliers. So how do they benefit from the system? So the first one is that the system reduces the cost of doing business. So what I mean by this is in the old manual procurement, when a supplier wants to participate at ZESCO, maybe there's a tender that ZESCO is floating, and this supplier is based in Zambezi. What would happen then is that supplier has to move from Zambezi,
all the way from Zambezi,
come to ZESCO. So they will spend money on transport and probably accommodation and meals. They get to ZESCO, buy that document, then they travel back again to Zambezi, look at the document and the requirements, they prepare everything, and at the time of bid submission, they have to come back to ZESCO and submit that bid at ZESCO. So all that costed a lot of money. So with the system, what is happening now is that if you are a supplier based in Zambezi and ZESCO is floating a tender, there's no need for you to actually come all the way to ZESCO here in Lusaka to physically drop your tender. You can do it remotely. All you need is internet connectivity, and you also need to have a profile on our system. So that's one of the benefits. Then the other one is that the system brings about transparency. So what it is now is that if ZESCO or ZPPA floats a tender, there is no need for a supplier to always be buying newspapers to see these opportunities. What happens now is that they need to have a profile like I indicated, and they just need maybe even a search pack, and they were able to see which tenders are being floated by these government institutions. And then the other issue is that now, instead of them calling you as a procurement officer to find out the status of a procurement, the system sends them emails. I submit my bid today, the system will send me an email telling me to say, your tender has been successfully submitted. And if they're doing the evaluation, it will send me another email telling me to say the tender is now under evaluation. If they're done with the evaluation, the system will also send me an email whether I've passed that procurement or maybe there's something I wasn't successful because I didn't attach certain documents. And then when it comes to submitting, in the manual system, what we've seen, there were very good bids. You find that there's a tender that has been floated and they're asking you to submit 5 documents. So they will ask you to submit a CV for a foreman, a CV for an electrician, a CV maybe for a plumber, and other CVs that they would ask you. So, most of these suppliers are pressed for time. So you discover that in a hurry, they only submit 4 CVs out of 5. But everything is okay, their pricing is okay. But when you're doing an evaluation, if one document is missing, then that tender you've lost that tender.
Yeah.
So with the system, how we've tried to address that is that it has got a validation meter. So if you're asked 5 documents and you only submit 3, the system will tell you to say your submission is at 75%. So even you are guided to say there are certain documents that I need to attach.
Yeah.
And if you submit all of them, it will tell you that your submission is at 100%. So with that, it will assist you in winning bids now, because that aspect of bids not being complete is actually eliminated with the system.
Yeah.
And then we also have the consistency of process. The system is actually for suppliers. It's available 24/7 because it doesn't have keys like the way it is now in the manual system, where if you want to submit your bid and it's 17 hours, you can't come to ZPPA because they've knocked off. But with the system, it's available 24/7, meaning suppliers can submit even over the weekend, at midnight. They have that leeway of submitting. And then tenders are very much secure on the system. Not even someone from ZPPA can tamper with the supplier's bid.
Is that assurance?
Very. That's the assurance we can give you. No one can tamper with your bid. Even if you submit a bid today and it's closing next week, no one can go into the system and remove documents from it.
Unlike paperwork, it's fanafake buino, got lost and whatnot.
Yes, so the system is that much secure.
Yeah.
And when it comes to tender documents on the system, they are free of charge. So if a supplier is interested in any tender that is floated on our system, they can download that tender document free of charge. And the only time that they will be charged is after they've gone through the requirements and they are sure that actually they meet the requirements. That's when we'll ask them to pay if there's a participation fee. But if you download the tender document and it's something that you can't do, you don't need to pay for that tender. Yeah. And then the other one, the system is location independent for suppliers. So you could be a supplier who's based in Chama. You can submit a bid in Winilunga without you necessarily having to go physically. Yes. And then for the payments on the system, be it for registration or for tender participation, the system has got both online and offline payment options. Under the offline, they have to go through, they download the bill master form from their profile and take to Zanaco to make a payment. Then on the online options, they can pay using their Visa card or they can pay using mobile money. Yeah. And then for procuring entities, they benefit from the system because it has got an automatic viewing. It has got automatic viewing of tender information. So if a supplier or a procuring entity did the tender maybe last year and they want to redo a similar tender this year, they can pick from the previous tender they did last year. They can import that information and they can have it on a tender that they are doing this year. They will only have to change the dates and things like that.
Yeah.
And then the system also reduces the time for finalization of tenders. So what we mean here is that in the manual procurement, if you're doing an evaluation, since most of these information is manual paperwork, it means you all have to be in a room such as this one. If we are 5 of us doing the evaluation, we sit and we're all looking at the same document. Yes. So if one of us is not here, we don't have a quorum, meaning that evaluation won't happen. But with the system, what is happening now is that someone can be in Solwezi attending a workshop, someone can be in Mansa attending a workshop, but if all of us have been appointed to be part of the evaluation committee, we can just decide to say maybe at 12 hours, all of us, let's log in from our respective computers and let's do the evaluation. So the system does not wait for us to be in one place. We can do it remotely.
Makes things easy.
So with that, procurements will be awarded within the planned time.
Yeah.
And then we also have issues to do with, for the procuring entities, it simplifies the publication of information to the suppliers. So what we mean here, I'm sure you've seen tenders done by RDA in the Daily Mail, you discover that if there's a contract for the construction of a road in Chama district, they would actually get the whole entire page talking about how the requirements for that tender. But if a tender is floated on the system, there's no need for RDA or indeed ZESCO to get the whole full page. All they will need is put their logo and say, tender for the construction of a road in Chinsali, follow the following link. So when a supplier is interested, they'll just go to their gadget, input that URL, and they'll be taken to where the actual information is. So it simplifies the publication of information. And then also for procuring entities, the system does reports automatically for them. So reports such as tender opening reports, the system will do that automatically. Similarly, evaluation reports are done by the system, and also quarterly procurement reports are done by the system. Yeah. Then for us as APPA, we'll benefit from this because like what you asked in the morning, the issues to do with compliance, the system will make sure that it's easy for us to monitor compliance, because currently we have close to about 635 procuring entities in the country.
Public procurement.
Yes, and we only have one ZPPA, the whole country. So if all these government institutions are using manual procurement, what it entails is that we have to go physically to all of them, the 635. So in a year, that's not possible to touch base with all those institutions. So it was difficult in the past to do compliance monitoring. But with the system, if all these government institutions are on the system, today I can decide to say, since I'm the compliance officer, I'll concentrate on the maybe southern province. And then I'll check what they're doing while seated in my office. So I'll check, and if everything is okay, then we can even write to the controlling officer to say, congratulations, you're doing the right thing.
Ahead.
But if you're not doing the right thing, we can give them advice remotely. So that one is a plus on their part. And then for the government, they're interested in the system because now there will be transparency in public procurement. So all those notions that we have to say public procurement is corrupt and what have you will be a thing of the past, because citizens now are able to follow what is happening in these government institutions remotely, because they can log into the system. Even when you don't have a profile, you can check how procurement is done. And with that, there will be a good corporate governance, because now most people now will see what the government is doing and things like that. So those are some of the benefits that the system brings.
So then is it safe to say that all government institutions are using the EGP system currently?
Okay. So according to our statistics, like I indicated, we started rolling it out in 2016.
2016?
Yes. So in 2016, we had 7 institutions that were using the system. Then after that, we started rolling it out to other institutions. So after the enactment of a new law and the grace period that was given, from the 635 institutions that we have, we've managed to train 624. So by law, all these institutions are supposed to be using the system. So yeah, we're almost there.
So there are some that are remaining.
Yes, some. Yeah, there are some that are remaining. Yes, but that is a work in progress, and we are targeting those to have them on the system before the end of this quarter.
Yeah, but targeting these others to have them on the system, really. And this leads me to my next question, talking about, this full use of the EGP system. Let's talk about rural areas, really. I don't know, what have you had any challenges with ensuring that these procuring entities in rural areas are also on this particular system? And also maybe one would say, we love what ZPPA is doing, but then look, how about the rural areas? There's those rural areas that are in the deepest of the rural areas, where, yes, they may have all these gadgets, but network maybe is an issue. Maybe the network could be slow. Those challenges.
Okay. So it might interest you to note that actually the rural areas are the best performing procuring entities.
Really?
Yes. Oh. So I can cite Kawambwa.
Yeah.
And there's also Mfumbwe,
Bakula Province, Mfumbwe. Yes.
Yeah, so those are the best performing institutions that we have on the system. So it's not really about the area where they are, even the rural areas, because the sensitization has been ongoing
Yeah.
since 2016. So we've actually concentrated on all the parts of the country, and these institutions are actually doing well when it comes to the implementation of the system. But for those institutions, those areas where there is intermittent internet connectivity, as an authority, we have an MOU with Smart Zambia. So once we do, because we don't just add institutions on the system, what we do, we have what we call the e-readiness assessment. So before we can onboard maybe Chiluvi Town Council on the system, what we do is we have an e-readiness questionnaire, which has got the requirements for using the system. So those institutions have to go through that. They respond to those requirements for system usage, and if they comply, then we add them on the system. But if they say that there's no internet connectivity in the area, then we write to Smart Zambia, and Smart Zambia will be on the ground to ensure that connectivity is brought to that area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then that's much better, because I was really concerned with these areas. So then, would you say that all procuring entities and suppliers are adequately trained in using the EGP system, since it's mandatory to everyone has to use it? Have you done adequate sensitization to your stakeholders?
Okay. Yeah, so the sensitization has been ongoing, like I said, since 2016. So using resources from ZPPA, we've been going around all the 10 provinces since 2016. So we've been training both suppliers and also procuring entities. So most of the institutions have been covered.
Yeah.
And then last year and this year, we have a project that we are running with Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development, in conjunction with the World Bank. That is the Zambia Devolution Program. So under that program, we've trained 96 councils. That's the local authorities. All of them have been trained.
All of them have been trained?
Yes, all of them.
So there's no excuse there?
Yes, so most of them have been trained. And then we have trained, like I said, from the 635 government institutions, we've trained 624. So those institutions have been adequately trained in the usage of the system. And on the system, we have close to about 75,000 suppliers that we've registered that are on the system currently as we are talking. So when it comes to the training and the sensitization, that has been happening, and we can say we've been successful in that area. And then what we've done, because, like I indicated, some institutions were trained in 2016. And this is 2024, so you might expect that some people maybe would have forgotten one or two things.
Yeah.
So as an authority, what we've done, we've developed, with the support that we got from the World Bank, we've developed e-learning materials.
Yeah.
So we have videos and we have some literature on the system, which helps people to do self-learning.
Yeah.
So that can be accessed from our website. And suppliers have got videos that they can watch. Procuring entities have got videos that they can watch, which can somehow help them acquaint themselves or build capacity when it comes to using the EGP system. And on top of that, we also have a help desk. So we have a help desk which operates from 8 to 16 hours. So if anyone has gone through the material on our e-learning platform and they're finding challenges still, they can call someone and they can talk to that someone. They can, if they don't want to talk, they can actually get a picture and send to our WhatsApp line. We have a dedicated WhatsApp line which members of the public can actually use to contact us, and we can help them when it comes to capacity issues that they might have.
Yes.
Thank you, Angel. Maybe also in addition, I just wanted to maybe give a very practical testimony of the EGP system as in the rural. Angel, we were in Minilunga last year. I think we had gone for duty. There was a program that we were doing at the lodge. Have you been to Minilunga?
Furthest I've been is Kalumbila.
You see, and you see Minilunga, after you reach Solwezi, the road going to Minilunga is quite bad.
Yes.
So we were in Minilunga last year. The lodge where we were, probably you have never been at that lodge. The lodge where we are, the owner was actually registered on the system, and he was able to show me, because he was, I think, using his desktop computer. He was actually showing me that I'm actually registered, and this is deep in Mwinilunga, northwestern province. So, as my colleague says, in the rural, they're able to access the EGP, because I actually saw this lodge, the owner of this lodge, registered on the system, and he was able to transact on the system. Next week, we have a program in Pika. The venue where we're going to have this program in Muchenga province, they were able to transact on the EGP, and this is in Pika. So these are practical examples that the EGP system is being accessed by suppliers out there, even in the rural areas. Thank you.
Awesome. Now let's talk about. I like how you've given the Mpika district example, and also Mwinilunga, but also in the midst of all that, we've heard suppliers complaining about the system. Is it true that the EGP system is not user friendly, and that often the system is offline, resulting in tenders being cancelled?
Okay, the EGP system, the way it works on the suppliers part, it's more like a questionnaire. It's very user-friendly.
It's very user-friendly.
Yes, so how it works is, many, the people who would say the EGP system is not user-friendly are those that have not interfaced with the system. But if you find a supplier who's actually worked with the system, maybe on 1 or 2 tenders, they will tell you that actually it's very easy to use. And if they find procurements that are done manually, those same suppliers actually call us to say, why is this institution not putting this tender on the system? Because for the tenders that are on the system, it's easy to access, and it's also easy for us to actually submit our bids. So the way it works, it's more like a questionnaire. When you log into the system, it will ask you, here you have to put your PACRA. Do you have it? You just get the picture, or is it a PDF form of your PACRA, and you attach. Then after you're done, you just save and you upload your package. So the system on its own is very easy to use. And if there are some who might not have an opportunity to be trained by our staff, like what I said, we have e-learning materials, and we also have a help desk. And we've also done a deliberate move starting today. Like if any supplier out there is finding challenges with the system and how to use the EGP system, we have virtual trainings that we've scheduled at the end of each month. So there'll be 2 at the end of the last 2 weeks of the month. So today at 14:30, if they can access our website, there's a link for a training that we've scheduled this afternoon, 14:30 to about 16:30. So similarly, we'll have another one next week. And even next month at the month end, the last 2 weeks, we'll have virtual trainings which members of the public can join. And if they have any questions, any queries, they can be assisted. And as we speak today, we have a team that is currently on the ground. They're in Eastern Province. So they are doing supplier training, and it was posted on our website. So if people want physical meetings, they should be looking forward to our website. We'll be posting the physical locations that we'll be at. But at the end of each month, starting this month up to December, there will be virtual trainings every Friday, every last 2 Fridays of the month, that will be posted, and suppliers can access those.
Ones. All right. Let's see if we can get some contributions before we get to the market price index. The number is 0956 200 490, 0956 200 490. That's the number that you can use to get in touch with the studio, 0956 200 490. And also on Facebook, it is RCV News. You get to RCV News and you can post your comment over there. I had one contribution here that says, when submitting a bid through EGP system, if NAPSA compliance certificate is not there, but you attach a receipt or receipts as proof of payment, does it suffice or it is sufficient? I hope you've got that contribution there.
Okay. Yes, I did.
Did you get it?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. Yes.
So on that one, like we indicated, the system And procurement in general in Zambia is decentralized. So it's not ZPPA who does the procurement. So if there's a tender that you've seen floated by any government institution and they're asking for that compliance, a mandatory compliance document such as NAPSA and whatnot, the best will be for that supplier to get in touch with that particular institution and ask them to say, here on the NAPSA requirement, we haven't gotten the document, but we have a receipt. Is it okay for us to submit that? Then that particular institution should be able to guide you whether that can suffice or maybe they would want an actual document. Okay. So on the system, we have a clarification mechanism. So you can just go on the system and just click on show menu, and the system will have options. So if you want to ask any questions to that procuring entity, there's a feature which you can interact with those people and they can actually give you guidance if whether the receipt will be okay or maybe they want an actual document.
Okay. All right. I think we'll pick up calls as we go on. 0956 200 490, 0956 200 490. Do have quite a number of text messages here. Let me just quickly go through them. Okay, this one says, good morning. Good morning, listening to the program. Thank you so much. Okay, this other one, I think this one came before you started talking about the EGPS because, good morning, kindly explain about this new EGPS system that has been introduced. We see it a lot in the media. Thank you so much. I actually hope that you got the explanation from Mr. Nkowani. This other one says, good morning, listening to the program. How can I get in touch with ZPPA if I want to engage them on a personal level? MJ from Lusaka. Thank you so much, MJ. Okay. Let's get to the market price index. This has also been quite a hot issue, really, and maybe for starters, because we also saw a notice from ZPPA who actually ran the story, but maybe before we get to that, I think let's start it off from the top. What is the market price index? What is it all about? So that I think we started from there.
Thank you, Andrew. And for the sake of the listeners,
and I think Douglas also asked this question, right?
Okay.
In the first hour of the program.
Okay.
I hope you remember.
Yes, I think there was that question.
Okay, all right.
We'll try to also look at it. So, just like it says, market price index. Essentially, the market price index is more like a tool or a matrix, okay, which looks at what is the average price of this product on the market. Okay, what is the average price of this product on the market? And the market price index, actually we have over 2,000 items, almost 3,000 actually items on the market price index. So it is basically a tool which looks at the prices of what we refer to as commonly procured goods and services. For example, stationery, accommodation services, etc. So essentially it looks at the prices there at the market. But maybe to also give a bit of a background why we have the market price index. And I think it will be something that you are going to appreciate, Angel, and also the listeners and viewers out there. I'll give a practical example of what actually happened in one of these procurements in one institution. There was a procurement for this institution. They were procuring a drilling of boreholes.
Yes.
And maybe, Angel, to ask you, what is the cost of drilling a 50 meters borehole?
Is it 15,000 kwacha?
All right, somewhere there, about 15,
somewhere
17. In this institution, in one of the provinces, I will not mention, but in this, what happened is that for that procurement of one borehole, 50 meters, no accessories, it was 110,000 and this is a true story,
110,000
110,000 per 50 meter borehole, and they were actually procuring more than one. And this is for one. I mean, the cost of drilling 150 meters.
This is just drilling.
This is just drilling, no accessories. 110,000. And that procurement was even conducted and award of contractors, because we're actually drilling several boreholes, not just one, at the cost of 110,000. And this has been happening in the public sector procurement. So, why the MPI is to take care some of these costs, you know, where there's overpricing and escalation of prices for certain items, is to arrest some of these issues. And that's why we have the market price index, so that we come and address this issue of overpricing of goods and services, like this example that we've given. In fact, for that issue, a team from ZPPL went to investigate just to find out why should the drilling of 50 meters cost 110,000 when the average is 17,000. So you can see the exorbitant price which was attached to that.
And this is public money.
And this is public money.
Taxpayers' money.
Yes, and this is taxpayers' money. So the MPI is there to give guidance of what is the average price of drilling a bore, so that in an event that a supplier quotes you 200,000 to drill a 50, then you'll be able to say that no. According to the market
MPI.
price, this is the MPI, this is the average price of drilling a 50 meters. Your price of 200,000 is way beyond the even the plus or minus 15% range that we have given. I mean, and you can actually see that it's not reasonable, it's not value for money. So that is why we have now the MPI.
The MPI.
To take care some of these, especially where there's been so much of overpricing of goods and services, and sometimes very exaggerated prices, like the example that I've given, is to address some of these issues. Yeah. And I think the president has also brought out some of these.
He's been
issues.
Very categorical on these issues.
Overpricing of goods in government or public sector procurement. So the MPI is there to address some of these issues and concerns that have really been in the public. In the public. Also, let's come back to the question of. I think there was a question on
Douglas from Solwezi.
Yes, about the MPI. Does it address works? Essentially, the MPI looks at commonly procured goods and services. For example, I think I gave an example of stationery. You have issues like accommodation and even motor vehicles and so on and so forth. But when it comes to works, I can at least confirm that it also looks at certain products which are used in construction. For example, it has rates for plastering, it has rates for tiling, for sealing, even cement, even paint. Yeah. Although maybe the actual issues of construction works, we are yet to get there. We are yet to get there where such rates will be made available. But for now, it only looks at certain products that are used in the construction.
Yeah. And then also let's maybe just get more information on the issuance of the market price index and the revised tolerable range of plus or minus 15% from the previous 10%.
Yes.
What does this mean?
Okay. So the market price index, when it is how we issue it out. So if you look at section 12, it says that the authority shall issue on a quarterly basis the MPI. So we issue this MPI every quarter. So for example, in quarter 1 of this year, 2024, we issued the market price index for first quarter. I think that was around January, somewhere there, for quarter 1. Also, just recently, because we are in the second quarter of 2024, so we also issued the market price for quarter 2. So we issue them as law provides on a quarterly basis. Yes, of course, for the future, we are hoping that we can probably issue it maybe a bit more current than we are doing. But for now, as provided in the law, it's issued on a quarterly basis. Yes.
Yeah.
The issue of the plus or minus 10%, is it
15.
plus? Sorry, actually, it's plus or minus 15%.
What does this mean?
So, essentially, what it's trying to say is that here is the average price of this product. Let's say it's.
Can we use a pen as an example?
Okay,
Yeah.
let's use a pen as an example. Let's say this pen is the MPI. It says 15 kwacha on the MPI. Okay. The plus or minus 15% means that the range 15 kwacha, add 15%. Now you have to do a bit of mathematics. Add what is 15% of 15 kwacha. Just do a bit of, I hope you can do a quick mathematics there.
So you're saying 15% of?
What is 15% of 15 kwacha?
Okay, so 15 kwacha by 15%. My calculator is very interesting. Okay, no, let me do that again.
So
15
what you do
kwacha.
is find what is 15% of
100
of 15 kwacha, then add that to the 15. We're doing the maths.
Yes, I'm
Okay.
15. So does this mean that of that 15 kwacha, you have to add 2 kwacha, 25 ingwe? Yes.
Yeah. So you
Okay.
add that. Okay. Meaning that any pen costing between 15 kwacha
and
up to 19
kwacha
yes.
to 25 ingwe.
Yes.
Yes.
Is
That's what
is
that's
acceptable.
what
Yes.
acceptable.
Is acceptable.
And then the minus.
Then the minus again. Do the maths again.
Yeah.
What is 15% again?
It's 2.2,
Is
2.25.
What is
2.25 ingwe.
then
You
reduce it
that
by
so from 15
yeah.
kwacha reduce by this,
By
so
two,
that's about
yeah.
13.
Which is comes
12.
75
yeah.
ingwe.
So meaning
yeah.
that any pen costing between 12 kwacha
75 ingwe
up to
19
19
is
is
acceptable.
acceptable when you compare it with the market price index. Essentially, that is what is so that range is what is acceptable. That's the meaning of the plus or minus 15%.
Yeah.
So if it goes beyond 19 kwacha, then it's not reasonable for you to buy.
So if it goes beyond 19 kwacha, that's so this is also for, let's say, big procurement items like graders, vehicles also.
Yes, even vehicles, especially for government, you find government buys brand new. So even there's a category actually for vehicles on the MPI. But let's also explain why did we go plus or minus 15
from 10. Yeah.
From 10%. We did the survey, Angel, because what happens is when these prices are being collected on the ground, for example, they'll go to the provincial center. Let's give an example of maybe I'll pick Solwezi. Yeah, I think that's where Douglas. I'll pick Solwezi. So you get prices of commonly procured items in Solwezi, but you will not pick the price of. Let's say you are buying cement. What is the cost of cement in Solwezi town? If you look at the other districts which are further, we have Chavuma district. We have Ikelenge. We have all those areas within let's say northwestern Zambezi district. You have Mnyelunga district, Ikelenge district, Chavuma, Kasempa. We need to factor also the issues of distance. You find that the cost of cement in Solwezi will not be the cost of cement in Chavuma, in Ikelenge, in all those far-flung areas. So we needed to factor those.
So that's
issues.
why that 15%
So that's
comes
why
in.
we now have the plus or minus 15% from the plus or minus 10% to factor that, because we had a survey and it was actually found that actually the cost of some of these products is slightly higher when it comes to the distance districts away from the provincial center. So that's how we move from the plus or minus 10% to plus or minus now 15%.
Yeah,
to take care of
maybe another
those
question there.
factors.
Is there any maybe sort of worry that even procuring entities, for instance, maybe in Lusaka and the Copper Belt, could be exploiting this plus 15%? Is it possible?
Well, is it possible?
Because maybe they would say, look, in Chavuma, let's say for instance in Lusaka, cement is 140, just for argument's sake. In Chavuma, maybe they're buying it for maybe even 155, just as an example. Then we find procuring entities in Lusaka buying also for 155. And then they'll say, hey, it's not us. This is what the MPI says. The MPI is saying this. So actually within touching distance.
Actually, when you look at the MPI, the way it has put these average prices and categories of products, you have prices of products as in Lusaka.
Ah, okay.
You
So it
have
varies.
also, yes, you have also prices of products in Solwezi or Northwestern Province. Essentially, what is the price of this product in Lusaka? It gives you the price. What is the price of this product in Solwezi? It will give
Gives
you
you the
this
price.
price. What is the price of this product in Ndola?
Yeah.
Essentially, you know the provincial center. So it has those information.
So what happens to these procuring entities that go beyond this 15%, we would call it an allowance?
I think Malcolm actually mentioned
That's why the teeth now
and
come in?
also, in the law, it's actually now an offense. Although, in a situation where a P wants to procure and it is beyond that range and they would want to still proceed, there's a provision where they can actually proceed, but they need to justify why they proceeded to procure this item beyond that range. Because also, let's remember, all these, when these evaluations are being done and comparison to the MPI is being done and also conducting a price, it goes to the procurement committee for approval. Yes. So a justification can be made if they want to proceed to go beyond that range.
If no justification
but
is made.
If there's no justification, then it, like he here says, and what actually the law has provided, then it is.
So all this is in a bid to ensure that you curtail this issue of inflated prices,
correct,
overpricing and whatnot. I have an interesting text message here, the last one, read it before we wrap up. If there is public procurement, that means there is also private procurement, right? If that's the case, firstly, do Ps and suppliers have to use the EGP system when the two are engaged in private procurement processes? Secondly, how is a private entity affiliated to the government supposed to operate procurement in relation to the EGP system and the Public Procurement Act, since it is public? Okay. I don't know. Have you got the gist? So the second part is saying, secondly, how is a private entity affiliated to the government supposed to operate procurement-wise in relation to the EGP system and the Public Procurement Act, since it is public? Teddy from Ndola.
Okay, maybe I can take the last part. So normally, like what was indicated in the morning, public procurement essentially deals with those institutions that deal with government funds. So if an institution does not use public funds to conduct their procurement, then they can be on the EGP system. Yeah. So what we have, So what we have on the EGP system are those institutions that are funded by the government or which government has got a stake in them. So that's the part about the EGP. And then for the private sector participating in public procurement, mainly they participate as suppliers. So if a private institution wants to supply maybe a ZPPA with some items, then they are compelled by Section 16, where they have to interact or engage ZPPA using the EGP system. So private institutions only come in as contractors or suppliers to the government. That's the only way they can use the system. But if they want to do their own procurement, where they want to buy their own stationery, then they're not compelled by the law to actually use the system, and they won't be registered on the system for that purpose. Yeah, so that's the distinction we can make on that part.
Maybe just in addition to what my colleague says, for For the private sector, normally we deal with the suppliers and contractors out there. So as ZPPO, actually, we do engage these suppliers and contractors out there in that we have what we call sensitization programs, where we actually train contractors, we train suppliers. How do you prepare a bid? Okay, and then we share to them principles that will help them participate in public procurement and also how to win tenders. So that's one other area that we do engage the private sector, suppliers and contractors.
Yeah, so maybe one last question, if you could answer this in maybe 60 seconds. Let's say, for instance, I'll give another example of a pen, right? You want to add this pen to the MPI. So what you're going to do as ZPPA, you're going to get quotations, isn't it? So let's say, for instance, there's quotation 1 that costs 10 kwacha, quotation 2, 7 kwacha, quotation 3, maybe 5 kwacha. Which one does ZPPA go with? Does it go with the highest quotation? Or it assesses to say, maybe let's go with the one for 7?
Actually, what happens, Angel, is that we'll get 6 quotations. 6 quotations. So the example you have given, there's a 10, there's a 7, I think there's a 10 kwacha, a 7 kwacha, a 5 kwacha. Let's add a 3 kwacha. Yeah. Let's also add a 2 kwacha. Let's add. So all the 6 will be, so what will happen is that they'll get all these quotations and do what we call a geometric mean. And then what is found will be the average price.
So how do you calculate the geometric mean?
I don't want us to
okay.
into the actual details of, but
there should be some
average.
Okay.
Although it's referred to as a geometric, it's an average of the 6 quotations.
Okay.
Yes, I'm sure you still remember your basic arithmetic at school.
That's a long story.
What is the average of the 6?
Yeah.
So essentially, in a nutshell, let's not go into the actual details of, but what is. So normally, what happens is that those 6 quotations will be done. So they'll find the geometric mean of the 6 without really going into the actual mathematics.
Yes.
So essentially, that's what happens.
And then that's what you put on the MPI.
So that is what we will now put on the MPI.
Same with vehicles.
Yeah, essentially every item on the. That's what is
all right. Thank you so much. We'll have to leave, but maybe let me allow you to give your concluding remarks. 30 seconds each, because we've really run out of time.
Okay. Thank you. So, for me, I would want to direct our audience to the website. So, for most of the activities that ZPPA plans, they are usually on the website. So, we have training events that we normally conduct, and like I indicated earlier, we have the virtual training that is taking place today at 14 hours, and even next week it will be there, so they can take advantage of that. They can also take advantage of the e-learning materials that we have by visiting our website and our social media platforms to access these requirements. And then for those that might have challenges with the usage of the system, please let's get in touch with the help desk. Our people are there to provide assistance whenever you need it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Angel.
Yep.
Just 2 issues as I wrap up. Next week we'll be in Muchinga, specifically in Mpika. So for suppliers and contractors out there in Mpika, please make an effort to join us. I think next week, Friday, we'll have a day for suppliers and contractors. They're most welcome. There's a team that will be in Mpika, and I'll also be personally there so that we meet the suppliers and contractors and just have a discussion on public procurement. Also, lastly, we have what we call capacity building e-learning modules on the website, on our website. So members of the public are able to access these materials and just learn. We have topics like procurement planning, contract management and administration, procurement of goods and services, procedures, procurement of consulting services. So we have all those topics. Let them access those materials free of charge to learn more about public procurement.
All right. Thank you so much for coming through to the program. Really appreciate, and hopefully we do have you next time for another engaging discussion, just like we've had for this particular one. Thank you so much.
ChatBack on RCV News.